Real estate for resellers, I need you to know this is not about flipping houses. It's nothing like that. This is actionable content that you can do. And believe it or not, a real estate business can combine nicely with a reselling business. They don't compete. They don't necessarily compete for your time too much. That's the surprising thing if you do it right. I've seen many different approaches and avenues to folding a real estate sideline into reselling, but I'm going to discuss some general things in the first half, and then I'm going to give you one specific strategy. There are many, but I'm going to give you just one specific strategy that you can do that is possible as a reseller to combine real estate into your reselling. Now think about it. Really, all selling is reselling, right? I mean, a doctor buys a medical degree, hopefully to sell it for a lot more money over time to his patients or her patients, selling the knowledge that they paid for. They hope to buy that knowledge low and resell it over time and make a profit. Pretty much everything is reselling. Pretty much everything is marketing yourself. I don't care what you're in. And if you invest in stocks, obviously that's reselling. Not the way we do it in retail arbitrage, but it's reselling. You hope to buy low and sell high. Even crypto prices, you buy low and you want to sell higher later on. Real estate's the same way. Now again, one way to do that is to flip houses. You buy a house cheap, you fix it up real fast, as fast as you can, and you sell it as fast as you can to try to turn over that money. Lots of people try that. Lots of people are successful. Lots of people teach expensive seminars on how to do that, and lots of people lose a lot of money buying expensive seminars on how to flip properties. This isn't that. That type of flipping of real estate it becomes a major risk and business. You got to know what you're doing. So that's not what this is. Now, we resellers love the idea of flipping. I'm going to be more like the doctor. I'm going to show you how to invest in real estate and over time turn that into reselling profits by renting them out to other people. I want to focus on, therefore, buying properties that you rent to others. Now, although commercial real estate is lucrative, and maybe some of you do that, I'm here only to discuss investing in the kind of housing that families will live in, okay? That's much simpler than commercial to understand generally, especially for newcomers to this. And not even apartments, okay? That's a bridge too far. I mean, big 50 unit, 100 unit apartment complexes, they become a full-time business, just each apartment. And that's not the desire, I think, of most of you, and you're going to have employees full-time, and owning an apartment becomes your sole business. And I want your rental property to go right along with your reselling without risking taking over your reselling life. That's the go. Therefore, whenever I discuss real estate rental properties, I always stick to non-multi properties like apartments. However, in addition to single-family homes, I also like the idea of duplexes and fourplexes. Fourplexes are the largest I think you ought to do. Stop the tape. Stop the tape. Stop the tape. I want to explain to you something that you need to understand, and that is I made a distinction between fourplexes and duplexes and single-family housing, and I said anything larger is probably a bridge too far. And what I meant by that, twofold. One, most people don't want to enter real estate, the type of real estate for reselling that I'm going to be describing to you. Most people don't want to enter with large complexes. I mean, it's not the wisest thing in the world to start there. It's pretty smart to start smaller, get your feet wet, learn the ropes about what it's all about. Now, once you do that, the more doors you have, it actually turns out to be easier. The most important factor in real estate is how many doors do you have? Well, how many units do you have? We say doors. So if you have a 150 unit apartment complex, you have in the vernacular of apartments, that's called 150 doors, okay? If you've got a fourplex, you've got 4 doors, even if there are 4 back doors in those fourplex, those units. Now, anything that is single family, duplexes, triplexes, there are a few of those, not very many, and fourplexes, all of those you can get personal loan for. You don't have to have a commercial loan. For a commercial loan, that starts at 5 units, 5 doors, 5 units, and higher. Therefore, you probably don't want to start with a 10-plex. Okay, you're going to need a commercial loan. That's going to require a lot more things. Now, it's going to require larger down payment, I think 20-30%, something like that, depending on you. But a personal loan can be done. A personal loan, personal business loan, I will say. I mean, obviously it's for your new business, being in, real estate, in real estate investing, I will say. But you can get it just as your own, just your own person. You probably want to put properties in your business entity. I assume all of your LLC, subchapter S, something like that. But it's going to probably be you that gets the loan to begin with, to buy something. And I'm going to talk a lot about how you get loans for multiple properties. It's amazing how you can do this, how you can stack them, okay? And you can stack them, you'll see, safely, or else a bank wouldn't give you the money if it wasn't a safe way to do it. I realized in 2008 that was different, but in general, your bank down on the corner, they want to be safe, and they want you to be safe because they don't want to lose their money either, and they don't want to take over a house that you stop paying for because you don't know what you're doing. Speaking of knowing what you're doing, the more you know about real estate, about rental properties or whatever, the easier it is for you to get a loan. They really care a little bit less about your credit score and a little bit more about, can you handle this business? So you probably want to get some resources. I'm going to be giving you a free resource on how you can really learn a lot about this business. You'll be able to just download it. It's in the notes for this post. Okay, I think that's all I needed to tell you. But anyway, for some reason, up to 4 properties, up to 4 doors is not considered a commercial property. Now, what happens if you buy a 4-plex and then 45 days from now you see a duplex you want to buy? It's still a personal loan. Okay, that duplex, they only look at individual property loan. So it's not like you now will have 7, so they have to give you a commercial loan. I will say you have to get a commercial loan on that new duplex because that will give you a total of 7 properties. That's not how it works. However many doors you're getting a loan for, that's what determines whether it's personal or commercial. And at this point, if you've never done this before, you want to keep it simple and easy. I will say overall, 150 unit apartment complex actually can be easier to manage than 25 houses. It can be, because you will hire, I said earlier in this recording, you have to hire, a manager. You have to hire probably a repairman to be on site, to live on site, and all of that. But in a way, you do a lot less. They're taking care of the day-to-day business. You don't do as much as you will if you've just got 25 properties, because you can't hire a property manager if you've only got 15 units or 25 units. You're not quite big enough yet. I mean, you've got to be 40 or 50 to be able to really afford somebody who can take over your chores. So I actually would love to see you grow into something much larger. But right now, I don't want to scare you away. I want you to see how doable this is and how it does fit in amazingly well with a reselling business. Okay, back to the recording. And so that's just 4 places right next to each other. Sometimes they're in an L-shaped pattern of some kind. And I think fourplexes and duplexes are about the duplexes are about the most you should do, and single family houses. Now let me begin with some good news. And the good news is, this is news that should really make you happier than a hobo with a ham sandwich. You can become wealthy buying houses and renting them out. You can become wealthy buying houses and renting them out. It would take someone who's too dumb to go to community college not to do that, not to become wealthy buying houses and renting them out. It's like that. But the thing is, and although it's virtually assured wealth, but it is slow wealth. It's slow wealth building. And that's the best. That's great. Ultra fast, too good to be true wealth building. You know the adage, too good to be true usually is. This is the way to almost always build a wealthy empire slowly over time. And that means not only is it's slowly growing, so that's good. You're going to see this grow, but it's also less risk. Whenever you build wealth over time, that's less risk. When you try to build wealth fast, you're going to have to take giant risks and all of that risk versus return. So I think there's a big incentive, whether you're a family, an individual, I think it's a big incentive to incorporate some real estate into your future. And today I just want to plant a seed of interest. Plus, let's talk brass tactics here. What are you investing in now? I mean, what are you investing in now? What is it? If all your profits go to more inventory and you're churning inventory to grow your reselling business, great. But you're not making enough money in your reselling business to even pay yourself yet. So you're not ready to be investing in real estate either. And I don't want this to replace any of your reselling business. So I need you to get that down first. So I'm talking about, get your reselling business profitable first. Once it's profitable, where do you put your money? Do you drop it in a bank or in a money market? That's where it's safest. That's where it's most secure. That's where it brings you the least amount of growth. And as a matter of fact, inflation, now today, I'm not talking about today's inflation. I'm talking about always. There's always either inflation, stagflation, or deflation, but in all economies, not just today's. I know that today we live in an incredible inflationary economy. Our economy has been systematically destroyed over the last couple of years, intentionally, and so rates are very high. I'm not talking about right now. I'm talking about all times. Anytime you put money in a bank or money market, you are losing money because they cannot pay you. Consider it even lower risk, and that's buying treasury bonds. But putting your money in the bank or a money market, that's pretty much just right there with as zero risk as you can have in our nation. We're talking about fiat money, so it's all risky, but for putting all that aside, anytime you put money in a savings account, money market, you're losing money because they cannot pay you the GDP rate of growth. They cannot pay you inflation. If inflation's only 0.01%, they have to pay you less than that. The last several years, inflation's been so low, interest rates have been almost zero, practically zero. And now they're growing because inflation is just roaring back. That still isn't good. Bank rates are increasing all the time lately, but that's not even near what the inflation rate is. Our money is losing power, buying power, at a faster rate than it is growing in any bank or money market or treasury bill. So if you put your money in the bank, money market, that means you're taking a pay cut every day. So you really shouldn't do that. There are a lot of places to put money that's just slightly more risky, that's going to beat just the average rate of return of our economy, our GDP growth, our inflation, inflationary prices, whether low or high. There are many places that are just slightly higher risk than a money market, but they bring much better returns. I think real estate's one of those. I think real estate, over time, real estate generally is a great thing to invest in. I think the way that I show you this, you're going to be interested. But what else do you do with your money? What about dollar cost averaging into a stock index fund? Maybe some crypto, maybe dollar cost averaging into crypto. If you don't know, dollar cost averaging is Google. It's the easiest way to invest for beginners. Absolute beginners can do dollar cost averaging into anything. I would suggest ETFs. You can Google those. Any discount broker will offer you those. Index funds, you can dollar cost average in. Coinbase, you can dollar cost average into crypto. I would have a little bit of crypto. I would have a few more stocks and index funds just in your investment money that you're not going to need anytime soon. Dollar cost averaging, if you don't know much about investing, is a great way. Kind of put a little bit in each week, a little bit in each month, however you want to do it. But back to what I said, rental properties will make you wealthy. Dollar cost averaging should always, but it's slow. And unless you're 85 years old, who cares if it's slow, right? If it takes you 20 years, I don't care if you're 60. I mean, today's 60 is like yesterday's 40, really, or 35, really. Me, I heard this somewhere. It's not mine. I wish I could say it was mine, but I plan to live to be 180. I do a lot of anti-aging stuff, but I plan to live to be 180 or die trying. I don't really care about long-term growth. Great, I'm in. Let me do it, as long as it's not high risk, like flipping houses, like trying to day trade crypto or something like that. First things first, I'm going to give you a background on 3 people, me, myself, and I. And I'm going to do that for a reason that you will see in a little bit. It really matters. I'm not trying to just bore you with my biography. I grew up in a home where my mom and dad had lots of cheap little rent houses, lots of them. And I grew up in Tulsa, and still live in Tulsa. Tulsa is a nice sized town. I like the size. I like the modernness of it. Tulsa has about 500,000 people, 500,000 people or so. Last time I looked, it's been a decade. Probably we've got 500,000 people plus all of the illegals that have come in. And in the metropolitan area, about 500,000 people. So everything is here that you need, but it's not just a giant like Los Angeles or something. But there are lots of apartments, lots of homes for rent in Tulsa. My mom and dad did this wisely. I don't think they consciously knew what they were doing. I think it's just all they could afford. But what they did is they didn't want to compete with apartments in Tulsa. They didn't want to compete with all the rent houses in Tulsa. So they would go to little towns, 10, 12, 15 miles outside of Tulsa, and buy little tiny houses. 2 bedrooms often. And what they really liked was 2 bedrooms with a fenced backyard and a garage. I really like those 2, but 3 bedrooms with a fenced backyard and garage also, of course, great. Actually, those are more in demand, but today as people are having fewer children, as America has become another nation that will not be able to replicate itself because the birth rate is so low, 2-bedroom houses are kind of coming back, kind of gaining interest. So don't be closed out to a possible 2-bedroom house. You'll find a much better deal at buying those. Now, the reason you like 2 and 3 bedroom houses with a fenced backyard and a garage is it attracts the type of tenants you want. You want a family that kind of would like their car to be protected. It may not be a Jaguar, but it's going to be nice enough where they just kind of want the sun off of it and all of that. You're going to have a family, they might want a dog, a backyard, fenced backyard. Make sure there's nowhere the dog can get out, because if you're showing your house to a family and they've got a dog, they're going to be looking at that fence to see if there are any holes. And if they are, that's a problem. They're not going, they could love your house, but they're not going to like that. Their dog's going to get out. They love their dog. The type of people you want a fenced backyard and a garage. Now, I said I also like to rent to duplexes. Duplexes often have a fenced backyard and garages. I said I also really like fourplexes. They usually don't have fenced backyards and they usually don't have garages. So you're going to get a little bit less than the perfect family tenant in a fourplex, but rents are a little bit less. Your price is going to be a little bit less. We'll talk about that in a minute. So it's fine. It's fine. So this is what you're thinking. This is what you should be focused on. I don't want to buy in a big town. I want to buy outside of a big town. They call these bedroom communities. People live out here, less cost of living, and they'll drive into their job maybe in the big town, in Tulsa in my case, and they'll drive home to the little town and enjoy a quiet life with their family and small town atmosphere, that type of thing. Those are great homes to start looking for. And what my parents would do is they would buy the worst house on the street and they would turn it into the cutest house on the street. It's not the most expensive when they're done. Not at all. It's not the biggest. It's not the best. But it's the cutest on the street that really draws renters' attention. They like that. They're not looking for long-term 30-year houses. They're looking for a house that they look good in, that they enjoy, that it's clean, that it's been painted, that on the outside it looks kind of cute. So when their friends come over, hey, look at our little home that we live in. It's great. They're looking for cute, but in prices, you're looking for the ugliest house possible on the block. It's what I started doing when I got out of college. I just started replicating what my parents did. Now, how did I buy rental properties right out of college? I got a job. I'll tell you about the job here in a second. But I'm talking about buying houses I could have put on a Visa credit card and cash flow. Literally. Easily, I could have. My very first house that I ever bought, I paid the following. I paid $9,500 for. I know the cost of living, inflation since I was right out of college is, it's been happening, but it's not that different. It's not like from the Great Depression to now. And I paid $9,500 for my first rent house. It was a 2-bedroom house, fenced backyard, and a garage right outside of Tulsa. My second house was even better. It was the cheapest house I ever bought. I started to correct myself and say, least expensive, but it was a cheap little house. I paid $6,400 for my second house. It had 2 bedrooms, and guess what it also had? It had a fenced backyard and a garage. My third and fourth houses, I paid $7,000 and $8,000 for. I'm not exaggerating on prices, and I could get inflation-adjusted equivalent prices today. They're all over the place. Those houses are all over the place. Just like profitable retail arbitrage items are all over the place. You just have to look. I mean, you just have to find them. It's not that big of a deal. There's always a deal out there, always a really good deal out there. You want to find houses that, I hate the look of this place. Great, because everyone else does too, and the seller's going to have to ask rock bottom prices on that. Okay, I think you know what it's time for. I've been talking 15, 20 minutes, and it's time for a sip of ice cold coffee with 100% whole organic cream, heavy cream. I bought a fourplex, a couple of duplexes. Now, those are most interesting. I think the wisest. Not apartment complexes, remember, but fourplexes. You have one roof. If you have a duplex or fourplex, you have one roof. If the thing needs a roof, you do it one time every 25, 30 years. You have 1 yard to mow or to hire someone to mow for 4 tenants or for 2 tenants. You make one trip instead of 2 or 4 to see your tenants, maybe collect rent or something. I don't know if you want to do that. Usually people do Venmo and things like that these days. But you make one trip and you see all the places, and you should check in on your places at least monthly. And you should talk to your tenants at least monthly. And so you make one drive, one trip, and you talk to 4 different sets of families in one place. And the price of a fourplex is far lower than 4 separate single-family houses, far lower. Remember, there's not a garage, there's not a fenced backyard, but the price is lower accordingly, and yet the 4 rents add up to almost as much as 4 single-family houses. Not quite as much, but pretty surprisingly close, like 85% or something. You can get pretty close rent on a fourplex or a duplex to the equivalent number of houses. It's really amazing, and it's so much less work for you to fix up, maintain, again, one roof, all of that. If you have 4 single-family houses and they all 4 need painting, you've got to paint 4 houses. But on a fourplex, you paint 1 unit. It's a little bit larger than 1 house, of course, but it's not 4 houses. It's far easier for you to maintain a fourplex and a duplex. But I still kind of love single-family homes just because the tenants just can be so great. But they can be great duplexes and fourplexes as long as you do your job. I'm going to talk about how I learned to fix them up a little bit later and I made them so attractive. A lot of it I learned from my dad, and a lot of it I just have a knack for as well. So let me continue. You'll see why I'm going into this biography. As soon as I graduated from college, I had an MBA, Master's in Business Administration. My undergraduate was computer science. My master's was in business, and I minored in corporate finance, or as we say in Oklahoma, finance. And I got my minor in corporate finance, and I went to work for a Fortune 500 company in Tulsa. I think the only one in Tulsa at the time. Now, this is true, it's not to brag. At this company called the Williams Companies, I was, in a couple of years, I became the youngest supervisor in the 100-year history of the company. I was overseeing people, had an window office, in a big high-rise building. Window offices that's what everyone wants. And most people are in the center because that's where there's the most room. So the prime real estate, if you work somewhere, is a window office. I had a window office supervisor. I was on the 32nd floor of this 51-floor tower in Tulsa, biggest skyscraper in Tulsa. And I didn't like any of it. I've never been cut out to work for others. And that's not something I really like about myself. I wish I were more. I think it's not good to be so cut and dry. I will only work for someone, or I will only work for myself. I don't like those extremes. I happen to be the I only can work for myself extreme. I didn't like the daily grind, and it was an incredibly cushy job. They paid me a lot of money. Really, they paid me a lot of money. I had that window office. As you walk into the lobby, big marble walls, just a beautiful place. But my attitude was just awful. That's not the reality. It was not a bad place to work, but that was my attitude. And I saw a chance after 5 years to apply for a full-time teaching job at a college in Tulsa. Again, you're going to see why I'm telling you this. I know it doesn't sound like real estate. I think it's important for you to see the progression, to see what you can do as well. With your equivalents, you've got things going on in your life as well. That way, when I teach college full-time, it's only 15 hours a week, right? So when I wasn't in class, I'd be looking for more homes or working on the home I just bought. I do a lot of the work myself, a lot of the painting and fix up and repair. Where do I learn how to do that? And my father showed me. Where do you learn how to do that? YouTube. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. I just saw the other day someone, they don't know anything about cars. They don't know anything about repairs. And his window, one of his automatic roll down windows got broken, or someone broke in, I don't know. And he found one on eBay for $50, a perfect replacement, like new window. And then he went on YouTube first and said, it looks like it takes about 20-30 minutes to install this thing. And this I can't do anything handyman guy, he's not a handyman. Not at all. He's not even a handy boy. He installed his own window in this car for $50 and a YouTube video in 30 minutes. I mean, they would have charged what, 5, 6, I don't know what it cost. So how do you know how to fix sheetrock in a rent house if you are fixing one up and there's a hole in the wall? Well, you can pay someone, or you can just look at YouTube on your phone. It'll tell you what to buy and how long it'll take and what you do. It's no big deal. Have you seen most handymen, most people working on houses? Have you seen most of them? You can do all that work. You're smart enough to do it. It's not a big deal. You may not want to do it. You may not have time to do it. But you may have a big family and they require more time, but your family should be involved in this. It's their wealth too. It's not a big deal to do some of the work on your rental properties. You will appreciate those properties so much more. Now, I could say you'll save a lot of money, and you'll save money. You're still going to have to hire stuff to be done, but you have so much more of a personal investing, personal time, and I think you begin to love these homes. That probably sounded weird, but you really appreciate your own rental properties when you've really done some of the work, when you've painted the things. And I think you should. I think you should be closer to these things than a lot of landlords and landladies are, when they just hire it all done. Say, you just do it all and call me when I can put an ad in the paper. They don't appreciate their own houses. I think you will get better renters the more you appreciate your home, and it's your wealth builder. So when I wasn't in class 15 hours a week, I would be looking for houses, working on the last house, and I began work. I write books for a living. That's my primary career, is I write books, or I used to write books for 20 years or more. And so I had, about the time I started teaching college, maybe the second year or third year or so, I had 15, 20 books. They were doing pretty well. My associate professor job of 15 hours a week, after 3 or 4 or 5 years, I don't know how long it was, 3 years, I quit, because me working 15 hours a week for someone, that's way too much to demand on my precious time. Why? I'm not going to be. It was another cushy job. I mean, they close college for think about mailmen. The left hates it when you call it mailmen and not postal carriers, so I always call them mailmen. Think of mailmen, how many days off they get that no one else gets, government workers. Colleges close all the time, and they close for Christmas a week or two, and they close spring and all this stuff. It was a cushy job. Don't ever let a teacher say how lousy the pay is. It's lousy. It's how lousy they actually work. They don't work very much, whether college or anywhere else, 5 hours a day, 9 months a year, that sort of thing. So I was out looking for more houses, but I got tired of 15 hours a week demand on my time. So I quit. And I was writing a lot of books at the time as well. About that time, speaking of books, this is where I'm going to kind of close the circle on why I've wasted 10 minutes of your time telling you about me. About the same time, I was writing a lot of pretty advanced books for beginners. How to program in the C programming language, how to program in C++, how to do object-oriented programming. I wrote a lot of books about computers. And I thought, and I was known as someone who could take a pretty advanced subject and teach an absolute beginner. That's really my neck. I don't do many things very well, but I write very well and very quickly. I'm pretty much write it, and the first draft is basically done. May read through it to get edits, to get typos and stuff out. It's basically done. I don't do a lot of revision. I don't have to. And so I thought, about that time, I had several rental properties by then, quit my college job, I was writing full time, and my rentals were my sideline business, just as they will be for you. You'll be reselling full time, and your rentals will be your sideline business. About that time, I thought, I'm teaching people who don't like or know anything about computers, and this was before everyone had a computer. People weren't raised on computers in the mid 90s and late 90s. I thought, when this happened, I was about 1992 or 1993. I thought, why don't I write a book on rent houses? I mean, I love it. It's easy. It's super easy. Everyone thinks owning rent houses is super hard. So I'll write a book and show them there's nothing to it. There's nothing to getting great tenants. There's nothing to fixing it up. There's nothing to knowing exactly what to buy. It's all just a little formula that makes it brainless. And so I wrote a book on managing rental properties. And it did pretty well. It did pretty well. My book on rent houses saw 3 editions, and it was in print for about 20 years, 3 different editions, maybe 18 years. I don't know. I've kind of lost track, and I really don't care about the time frame, but it was out in 3 separate editions. Really did incredibly well. People would review it in newspapers all across the country. I mean, it was an amazing thing. The publisher sent me all these newspapers from, San Francisco and Florida, all these places that they were reviewing my book. It was always good. It was always a good review. I don't know if my publisher didn't send me the bad ones. My guess is there really weren't any. I mean, there's not much they could knock about my book, in my opinion. So that was a big deal for a while. Any of you knew that I was in the rental property business. And a lot of you have known me for a while. I doubt any of you knew that I had a bunch of rental properties. Turns out I've had them twice. I'm going to tell you that story because you need to know. But it's not to brag about my success and my book that I wrote. It is to tell you that you shouldn't listen to people who haven't proved success. Why would you do that? I've taught a lot of writing webinars and seminars and things like that over the last several years. The first thing I do is show them a picture of all my books. I've written like 150 books. 85 of them were from major publishers. I'm not going to start teach how to write books seminar if I don't show that I know what I'm talking about, because they should go to someone who can show credentials. I'm showing you credentials. I've been a major landlord, and I've even written a pretty major book about rental properties, so you should probably listen to me. Okay. I told you I was in the rental property business twice. The computer books, 1999, 2000, became pretty serious. I had the quite odd distinction of having the #1 best-selling book on Windows. A brand new version of Windows came out, and a brand new version of Office, Microsoft Office, came out at the same time, and my 2 books on those subjects came out at the same time. And I had the odd distinction of having the #1 best-selling book on Windows and the #1 best-selling book on Office, Microsoft Office, on Earth for a couple of months. Computer books were a big deal back then. They're not anymore, because if you want to know how to write a program in a programming language, you just go to Google and say, how do I learn C++? And it'll send you to a course, usually free, or YouTube, and you'll learn how to do it. But back then, we didn't have any of that. People bought computer books like crazy. I was known in the industry as being able to write a pretty darn good book. And I had the #1 top-selling books on Earth, and I sold all my rental properties. I don't remember how many I had, but a bunch of single-family houses, duplexes, a fourplex at the time. The books were so serious, I had to focus on those while the getting was good. And I'm glad I did, because a few years later, the bottom dropped out whenever Google and YouTube came along and replaced all of that. But I still needed to focus on my writing. It was just too important to my career, my income, all of that. Okay, on that rental property book, it's out of print. And what happens whenever books go out of print is the rights almost always revert back to the author. That happened to me on my rent house book. And what I've done is I worked on it a while and converted it to a Kindle book in 2008 or 9 or something. And for a couple or 3 years, I would update it. And that Kindle book is still for sale. Don't buy it. Here's what I want to do. I'm going to give it to you. So all of you are going to find a link in the description you can download my book. Now, it's just a PDF version of the Kindle. That means it's not fancy, because Kindle books generally are not fancy. If you ever write a book and to sell it an ebook on Kindle, Amazon wants it to be as readable on a little tiny phone screen as it is on a giant computer screen. So you have to keep it very simple, no fancy formatting. A lot of book publishers will put fancy formatting in it, but Amazon doesn't really like that, and because it's harder to read on smaller devices. So what I'm going to give you is a PDF of the Kindle book. It just has boldface once in a while, italics once in a while, nothing fancy. So it's going to be kind of a boring format, but it's a free book. Second, I haven't updated it in 5-6 years. Just haven't, maybe 7. But in general, 80-90% of the stuff is amazingly helpful for you if you're just starting out. Where to buy houses, what to look for in a house, how much to pay versus what your income is, versus what your income is expected to be on the house. How do you fix it up? How do you fix it up cheap? How do you get fantastic tenants who love you and are always afraid? My tenants were always afraid I was going to kick them out. They were. They would tell me that all the time. You don't tell a landlord that. You don't tell how desperate you are to stay in this house. They'd always tell me that. They really loved me as a landlord. You're going to learn how to do all of that in this book. So a couple of details you're going to realize. I don't think I mentioned Zillow or Nextdoor or any of the apps, Facebook, places that we would advertise on now. Used to, it was always newspaper classifieds, and I think when I put it in a Kindle format, I added a few websites to advertise on. But you still want to put an ad in the classified newspaper if the little town or the big town next to it still has a newspaper. So I tell you how to. But a few things I don't talk about. Venmo. I don't think I mentioned PayPal to collect rents and all of that. But all that's just, so what? I mean, you know how to use PayPal. That's not a big deal. If that's what you decide between you and your tenant, that's how you're going to get paid each month. It's no big deal. But all the rest of the information is evergreen on what do you do, what do you look for, how do you fix it up, how do you get great tenants. So I'm going to give you that book. Back to my credentials, because in 2010, you might find this interesting, I got way back in the rental property business. Well, where am I going to put my money? Now that I have time, my writing is not in demand anymore as much as it was. So I started buying up I started getting back into the real estate business. And I got 5 duplexes by the time I was done, several single family houses, and one fourplex, just like I like it, all in small little towns. So once again, I was a big landlord. And 8 years later, in 2018, my elderly mother, she had me late in life, she became sick, and we had to move out of our country home, 25 acres that we loved. I had 2 huge Morton buildings, had to move back into Tulsa, pretty much give everything we have away because it just wasn't time to sell all of our furniture. Where we're living now, basically no furniture. We've got 1 bed, 2 chairs in front of a TV, a kitchen table. That's about it. And then a whole bunch of shelves and tables for reselling. That's all we have in our house. But, you take care of your mom. But my reselling business was lighting up. Amazon, I was full-time Amazon seller for about 2.5 or 3 years, and I didn't have time for real estate. I just needed to really focus on growing that business. It was time. That was the next big thing. Who knows how long reselling will last, but right now, this is the time to get into it. An investor they came to me, an investor, and said, I'll buy all your rental properties. Here's the number. And I thought, okay, sounds good to me. And he just took everything over instantly. And whenever someone does that, they get all of your tenants, all of the leases transferred to the new owner, and all of that. So I'm out of the business currently. Will I ever get back in? I don't know. I don't know why I wouldn't, but probably not anytime soon. And I couldn't have a full-time reselling business with just me. I could have hired people. I've hired people before part-time and could have done that. But I don't know, with mom's situation, and we're always unknown, we may have to be with mom 48 hours straight, depending on what's going on. We care for her. We pay all her bills. Janie fixes her food, all of her food, and we take her to whenever she needs to go to the doctor, all of that. So I just can't really have employees because I may not be able to do any work or have them do any work. I know everyone's situation is different, but the rental properties just didn't make sense. I couldn't do rentals and a reselling business by myself and make a living at the reselling business. It would just be more of a hobby. And I don't think the reselling business ought to be a hobby. I think you ought to make a lot of money resell. So I had to sell the properties, but that was fine. I'm not in the business right now, but it's not like I've been out too long to teach you. I can give you details, and I do so in my book. I'm not going to reiterate my book here. Trouble-free rental properties. If you're interested in it, you're going to have your own copy of that book. All right, real estate for reselling. Review so far. As your reselling business grows, you need a wise place to put your money. Everybody thinks owning rent houses is a nightmare. I show you why it won't be for you. You learn my secret of attracting my secrets that aren't secrets. They've been in a major book. No one seems to follow them. No one I've seen. Everyone should have read my book. Keeping long-term great tenants. People fear owning rent houses. They think they're going to come sometime, drive up to the house, and the front door is going to be open, and the tenants have long fled, and it's dirtier than a Detroit bus station's men's restroom at 1 a.m. on a Saturday night. That's not going to happen. I mean, it could happen that you have a situation that bad. It could, but it won't. You're not going to have tenants like that. Let people who don't know anything about getting good tenants fear rent houses. That's okay. You want more supply because it'll be cheaper if a lot of people don't want to get in the business and someone's trying to sell a house. Fewer people to buy the house against you. It's all in your tenant selection. So far, I haven't really discussed any specific related real estate strategies, but I'm about to give you the one that I promised, and only one, but it's a doozy. But I just needed to suck you in that this is something you can do. Any of you who know me and who know me, who have seen me in person, if I can do most of this work, knowing nothing about how to fix up a house generally, so can you, okay? If I can do the work, you can do a lot of it too. But you don't have to. You'll still cash flow. At the prices you're going to pay for a house, you'll still cash flow hiring everything done. I just think you ought to do some. So one specific strategy, and it all involves your reselling business taking over your household. If you've been needing to get a warehouse, oh boy, do I have something better. And I know that I talk a lot about eBay because I think it's where it's at. I think it's the place to resell on, primarily overall. But even FBA only resellers, you need room, right? Always. People always tell me that my love for eBay is something they would never do because they don't have room to store all that stuff until it sells. Well, every successful FBAer I've ever been to their house, I've ever seen your pictures of your wrapping room and stuff. I've seen your packing and shipping rooms. Your FBA business has taken over your home. It is. You're going to need more space. So just an aside, I think I'm the only person on earth who thinks that shipping individual packages that I sell on eBay, making money on each one, because I always charge for shipping and plus extra, I always make money on all packages that I ship every day. Lots of sales on eBay every day. I think I'm the only person who thinks that wrapping and shipping a bunch of packages every day to people who bought from me in the middle of the night and yesterday, I think that's far easier and less stress than FBA shipments. Far. And I was a full-time FBA for 3 years. I didn't do any eBay for 3 years. I've done it since 1999, but I didn't do any for 3 years. eBay's so much easier, so much. But okay, I won't go into that, even though I just did. Let me get back to FBA. Your giant FBA businesses need, as you grow, you need space. You can't let it take over your home. There'll be a point where it just can't grow anymore. As for merchant fulfilled items, FBAers have to do merchant fulfilled. That's like eBay. You're going to have to store it somewhere in your house, and you're going to have to ship them when they sell individually. You've got FBA returns. You've got items that have been opened and returned, and you refunded full price, or Amazon did for you, but now you have to sell it as used. By the way, on eBay, if someone does that, you don't refund all their money. You refund half their money. If you sold it new and they returned it open and used, you send them half. eBay's so good. But anyway, I won't talk about eBay. So for merchant fulfilled items, you've got to have more and more space as your FBA. Wise merchant fulfilled strategies, like at Christmas time, you start selling artificial Christmas trees. That's a pretty big bolo that most people ignore because they're just so huge. Because you see this giant Christmas tree that sells well and it makes a lot of profit, but I'm not going to ship this to FBA and pay that, and then FBA has to ship it to the buyer and got to pay that. No, you don't do that. Things like that, you merchant fulfill. You list it and you ship it yourself. You ship it from your house to your buyer. Amazon gives you a discounted postage label that you just click print out. And you save a lot of money for yourself and a lot of hassle, and you save a lot of money for your buyer because it's just so much easier. So you're going to have, if you merchant fulfill wisely, seasonal items like that, for example, that happen to be large, artificial Christmas trees, you have to have space. So don't tell me FBA needs less space than my eBay business. It doesn't. Okay, well, we eBayers need room too. I agree. We who like 2,000% return on investment versus 50 to 100%, we need more space as we sell more items. So I have a ton of specific scenarios. I'm going to whet your appetite. Financing. What do you do about financing? I'm going to ask, just like I asked everyone in Indianapolis, how many rental property mortgages do you think you can get right now? You go to a bank and you say, here's our income and our expenses, and we'd really like to buy this really inexpensive little rent house and maybe get $4,000 extra to fix it up, and we'll just, sign our name, and maybe I don't know. But How many of you can get a small mortgage, right? How many of you can get a lot of mortgages right now? Probably very few. How many of you can beg, borrow, and steal and save for a down payment of the next rent house that you buy? Save for a down payment of $5,000, $8,000, $10,000 maybe. How many of you can do that and go to the bank and say, here's our down payment. We want to buy this house. Here's our business plan. It's what it's going to rent for. It's how much it's going to cost us to fix it up. Can we get a mortgage? And if it's a bank you've been doing business with for a while, you can probably get one mortgage. Almost all of you can probably get one extra mortgage if you're still paying on a mortgage. Now, we'll talk about debt. If any of you think debt is evil, it can be. And if any of you think personal debt's pretty bad to have, I tend to agree with you. If any of you think the home that you're living in, the mortgage is pretty bad, I would disagree. I wouldn't say it's bad or good. I would say it's fine. It's okay. Get a mortgage. Most people have to get a mortgage if they're going to buy a house to live in. That's okay. That's not really personal debt. I mean, it is, but you're going to have to pay for wherever you live. Whether you rent or buy, you pay for the house you occupy. How do you like that little jingle? Whether you rent or buy, you pay for the house you occupy. You're going to have to pay for a house, and you want to just have your own house? Fine. Most of us have to have a mortgage. But what about business debt? It is the opposite of wicked. There's a term called capital or capital expense or capital good, and that always means buying an asset that can make you more money the moment you put that asset into circulation, into use. Now, capital is also often used for cash. I need more capital. And what they mean is I need more money to finance something. Okay, but that's not really the best term for capital. Capital is normally a good or a home for a rental property, just something that you can buy. If you've never used a Rollo printer and you've been printing big labels on two up label sheets that you get from UPS, and then you peel them off and you print them off on your inkjet or your laser jet, you put them on, or you're printing them on paper and you cut and tape. As soon as you get a Rollo printer or any 4x6 label printer, Rollo, it's a capital investment. I wouldn't care if you put that on 12 months plan to pay for the $150 Rollo printer, because it's going to start saving you incredible time right away, which saves you money. You've got more time to list more things. You've got more time to source more things. It's a true capital good. It doesn't in itself really bring income, but it allows you to produce more income. It's a capital investment. Anything like that is okay to pay for it on debt if you have to. I think rental properties, for most of you, I think you should get the longest mortgage possible. Now, a lot of you will only qualify for a 15-year mortgage if it's a rent house or even a fourplex. But if you have a good relationship with your bank, you're going to qualify for a 30-year mortgage. And if you can, you should. Or 20. See if you can get a 20-year mortgage. The longer you can pay this off, the better. I know it goes against many of your, I don't want debt. Well, don't we want a house that's paid for and then all the income's ours? No, you don't want that. I'll tell you what. How many mortgages can you get right now? Probably at most one. Great. You get one. You might have save a little bit for a good down payment. They're going to give you a mortgage because that rent house is going to secure that mortgage for your bank. Someone's trying to reach me. Hang on a second. You're more important, but I got to get them to shut up. Okay. It was a bunch of eBay sales. So that's okay. Another trip to the bank, all this money. I don't have the cha-ching. It scares me. It's like a loud cha-ching if you've ever used eBay. It's like, oh. And then you're okay because you realize it's a sale, but I prefer that softer, same tone that I use for text messages that come in. So, where were we? Oh yeah, I know. I want you to get the longest mortgage possible and pay as little as you can on a monthly mortgage. So what you're going to do, you got 20 years, 25 years, it's all about cash flow. That's how you build wealth in rental properties. Cash flow, not profit, cash flow. And those of you that have a profitable reselling business, but every once in a while you're going, we've got a cash crunch here. We've got to make it to the next. Amazon still pays most people every 2 weeks, right? I'm so used to getting paid every single night from eBay. They just drop the money in my bank. But some of you get paid on Amazon, a lot of you every 2 weeks. And sometimes you need that money sooner. You're having a cash crunch. You're going to have to do something to get out of that. Cash flow is far more of a bad thing to businesses than profits. You've got to master cash flow. And it's all about cash flow in every business, including the rental property business. And if you want a rental property empire, you want good cash flow. And that means I want your payments to be as low as possible for as long term as possible. Even if you're an I hate debt, Dave Ramsey guy, that doesn't apply here. That does not apply here. You want a positive cash flow every month. Over the years, real estate, think about this. You've got a fixed mortgage as far out to the future as you can. Over the years, real estate has always gone up, always. Has it ever gone down for a year or two? Yeah. Are some areas weaker than others? Always. There's always areas weaker than others. And the weak areas come back and the strong areas start becoming always. But over time, real estate values always go up, but your mortgage doesn't change. For those of you who faint at paying minimum mortgage payments, when you sell, you get all that interest back you've paid from the net value, from the value increase in the house, okay, of normal real estate over time. But about financing, back to financing, you can get one rent house, right? That's all I think you should have. One, just get one rent house, get one mortgage, buy one little house the way I'll show you how to buy, and that's all you can get from the bank is one mortgage. So you're going to get one little rent house, and all that interest is deductible from the income, right? It's not like you're out that interest. All the interest is deductible. It's a business expense. The rent house depreciates over time. Its depreciation is deductible. If you don't know what that is, Google it and find some real easy website that explains what depreciation is. It's a landlord and landlady's dream is depreciation. It's like, wow, this really reduces my taxes like crazy on this rent house. Go to work fixing up that one house that I say, fixing up the ugliest to the cutest. I'm going to show you an example here. This was my $6,400 house. This was the cheapest house I ever bought, the before and after. This is what I do. I take the ugliest house on this block, and I make it the cutest house on the block, and it was. All of your neighbors love you. Get to know all the neighbors and say, look, I want to please you more than my tenants. Because if you're happy, I know I have good tenants. If you who live here and own your homes all around mine, who've hated this eyesore all these years that you see I'm making really cute, I'm going to get the best tenants I can. But if they're ever in trouble to you, call me. They will never know you said anything, and I'll take care of the problem. The neighbors start loving you, and they'll start helping you, and then they'll see your house. They'll come in while you're fixing it up. I know someone who might want to live here, and they're going to get you tenants half the time. And if they don't mind living next door to someone in a rent house or three doors down from a rent house, you like those tenants too. Look, these people have a huge investment, and you're improving the value of their home by improving the value of this eyesore, and they're gonna not even thinking, they're gonna help you a lot by helping you get great tenants that they like living next door to. So you get your one house. Finally, you get it going. What do? Well, you finally rent it out to great tenants, and you have the cash flow coming, and your income is always going to be more than your outflow because you have a long mortgage. Plus, these little rent houses, they cost nothing. The uglier the better, and you're the only one that's made an offer probably in a year and a half, and it's just been sitting there, and you're going to make a cash flow. You're going to make a profit every single month. So you have income coming in, that's a profit, and you have outflow going out. Oh, will I ever need a new roof? Yeah, once every 25, 30 years, it's fully deductible. I would say put that on terms also. Expense it out. It's all about cash flow. But you're not going to need a new roof every 3 years. What if we need a new air conditioning system? You might. You probably will every 15, 20 years. You just get one, put it on terms, and pay it out. It's all about cash flow. You've got to make your tenants comfortable. It's no big deal. It's not like you buy 3 air conditioning HVAC systems, heating and air systems for a home every 5 years. You don't do that. Will you in the first 3 years that you buy a house? Well, if it's that bad, you might want to replace it when you buy the house, maybe. But it's no big deal. Put it on long terms, get a cash flow. You now have one house, one new profit coming in every month, tenants who love you, if you do what I say. Don't do your best, always do my best. Get tenants who love you, and you can really focus on your reselling business. But then you get the itch, and you go, this is profit's pretty nice, and I'm building wealth. And guess what? If you have a rent house, people are buying a house for you. Do you get that? Have you got that yet? You're not buying a house. I don't care if that's a 30-year mortgage. You're not buying that house. These people, these strangers are buying a house for you. They're going to leave. You're still going to own the house. In 15, 20 years, 30 years, you're going to own this house. You never paid for it. Other people had bought you a house. So what happens whenever 3 months later, after you get it fixed up and you have tenants in there and you're getting cash flow and you think, this is pretty easy. This doesn't take any work, because it doesn't if you do it right. We're full-time in our reselling business, hasn't really affected us. Oh, a few times we had to, work on the house, fixing it up, finding it, all that. It's going to take away initially, but then you're back full-time to reselling. And you didn't go that much lower than full-time when you were dealing with your house. What do you do now? What if you went to your bank and said, I really need a mortgage because I want to buy another house? Whoa, right? Because they said, yeah, most will give you one, and we're not even sure we want to do that, but maybe we can work this out. That's what they said 6 months ago. What are they going to do today? They're going to look at your financial situation and say, look, at most we can give you is one more mortgage. Now, at most they can do is give you another mortgage. Why would they give you a second now and they wouldn't have 6 months ago? They only care about inflow, outflow. They're looking at the same person, the same family, only a different financial situation. You now have more assets, you have more liabilities, but you've got more income, and you've actually got rental property, and they're going to go, oh, sure, we can give you a mortgage, but you can only have one. Well, that's all I want. I don't want to buy 20 at a time, so you get one more. And you go through the same thing. It's always the same thing. If they're in two different parts of the little town, great. What you do, you paint them all the same color, inside and out, color scheme, right? So I always wanted to do colonial blue with white trim. Every place, every fourplex, every duplex, every house, both times that I had rent houses, they all had colonial blue with white trim. Why? And the inside was an eggshell white. All the walls were eggshell white, and all of the trim inside was white. Why did I do that? It's because, one, a white trim makes a house look larger, and number two, I always had paint, right? If a tenant moved out and I needed to maybe repaint the living room, I had paint, right? I didn't have to go, okay, I've got to match this, or else I got to repaint the whole thing. Or no, I always had paint. I'd always buy it from a local paint distributor, not from a retail paint store like I don't even know what paint stores are called because I never go there. I'd buy from a local paint supplier, buy them in bulk. I think by buying 5-gallon buckets, they would start giving me the contracting discount. And I always had colors. You always have paint. You never have to worry about that. So what do you do on your second house? You've already got paint probably. So you do everything you did on the first house and you get new tenants. What happens now? 6 months later, you go to the bank and you go, could I have a mortgage? And they'll go, oh, I don't know. And they're going to look at your income, and they're going to look at your outcome, and they're going to look at your inflows and outflow, and they're going to say, I think the most we can do is one, but I'm pretty sure that'll be no problem because you're in a better financial situation. You're getting positive cash flow that you didn't have before. And as long as you live, right? So as long as you live and want to be in the business, how many rent houses can you own? As many as you can possibly want, one at a time, until you have 4 or 5. When you have 4 or 5 and you go to the bank and go, it's been a while, I'm getting the itch. I really like all this extra money. I think I want a mortgage. How many mortgages can you give me? And they're going to look at your inflow, all this cash flow, your debt, your outflow, and they're going to go, I think the most we can do is two more. You can buy 2 rent houses, and that's all we're going to loan money to you. Okay, well, I'll just take that one at a time, please. And now you can buy 2. And as the number of listen, does this scare all of you Dave Ramsey people? It shouldn't. This is the way all real estate investors do it. All of them. If you can only get one mortgage today, you can always get one mortgage after you've fixed up and rented out your first house. Always. This is the way it works. This is how you build wealth. I'm going over time. I'm sorry, but you need all this information. You need to know what you're getting into. So here is my scenario for resellers. I haven't even got to that yet. Okay, but this is real fast. Okay, just like a 10-point list. Your business could do. If you want to grow your wealth and solve your storage space problem at the same time, here's what you do for your first rent house, okay? You purchase a duplex. Where? Pretty close. I would still do it outside of the big town. But if you live in the big town, you don't want this one to be real far from you. So, an expressway drive of 10, 15 minutes at most, but in a little surrounding area, and you want to buy the ugliest duplex on the block, and you do not want to fix it all up. You want to do this. You want to fix the outside up so that it's the cutest house on the block, whereas it was the ugliest. The next thing you want to do is fix up one side so that it's rentable, ready to rent. You do everything that I tell you in the book. You make it so that people want to rent from you. They walk in, they'll go, yeah, we want this. Where's your application? This is what we want. Families. The other side, you don't do that to. The other side, you get your kitchen working and you get one bathroom working and you clean it really well. That's all you do. Okay? You're not going to rent that side out. That's your warehouse. And guess what? You're not going to be renting a warehouse and throwing away money. I know it's deductible. I know it's an expense. But this is far better. Those people on the other side of you, they're paying for that duplex. You can, if you buy right in a little town, your tenants on one side of a duplex can almost pay for the duplex in full. Almost. Maybe not totally, but they can almost pay. And remember, depreciation, that comes right off the top. Remember, interest that you're paying on your mortgage, your long-term mortgage, that comes right off the top. After taxes, you're still making money on that duplex, even though you've only got one set of tenants. Usually. If not, okay, so you have to kick in $100 a month for a while. So what? Rents always go up eventually. Your mortgage payment won't go up. So you're no longer leasing a warehouse that can get your business expanded like you need to and get your home back to be your family home. You're paying $100 a month, $200 a month to do that, instead of renting a warehouse for $300 a month, $500 a month, and you have nothing to show for it. That's your home. That's your warehouse. You're leasing. That's why I said get the kitchen and bathroom working and make sure it's clean. That's all you do on that one side. Don't waste any money painting or anything. Just make sure it's clean. Move all of your tables. You now have a home where your family can enjoy, and it's not overrun with reselling stuff. You have on your side storage and shipping and listing center. You're going to have to get internet. I strongly suggest you get an alarm system for your side, and you should begin to see how brilliant that really is. There are tons of ways to leverage real estate for reselling. This to me is the most obvious for the type of families that generally attracts. I know not all of your families, but in general, even single people, this generally is a strategy that's very good for all of you. And this means your family home finally becomes only your family home. Your home's clutter, that eyesore, that eye clutter, even if you kept it very neat and tidy, it's eye clutter. It makes everyone feel busy and bunched in. That will be gone. The business is no longer there. No more reselling, no more wrapping room, all of that. And somebody buys a duplex for you. And you don't pay a stranger to use his or her storage facility to store a bunch of stuff. You don't rent warehouse space. And every day, this is key, every day what you're going to do is I'm going to go to work 8 to 5 on my reselling business. And you get dressed, shower, get dressed, have coffee, have breakfast if you want. I think you should skip breakfast. I think you're still fasting, and that's very healthy to only eat like once a day maybe, or twice at the most later in the day. But every work, I'm going to go to work 8 to 5, and that means driving to your side of your rent house and you work. And you're far more accountable when you do that. You're far more productive. You are, right? I mean, we've all, I know. Now what do? Your reselling business, even if you've got employees, you got to get out of bed. You're going to have coffee, you're reading email, you're going into your resell area when you get around to it, perhaps still in your pajamas. You're halfway kind of getting there every single day. And I speak from experience of the home business excuses to get to work. I'm also slow to get to work, although straight out of bed, I'm not wearing PJs. I won't go into details about that. You'll want a security alarm for your side, but you have a security advantage already because right next door, you have a family living. They're there when you're not. They're there in the evening. They're there at night. Even if they work all day, they come home about the time you're going home, and they're there the rest of the night. You have a security advantage are just built into this structure. You could consider hiring, maybe if the lady is a homemaker, and you could consider hiring her part-time, 10, 15 hours a week. I mean, she has to not drive to work. It's just easy money for her. What do you have her wrap, or do you have some FBA shipment help or something like that? Customer service, 5, 10, 15 hours a week maybe. Whoa, I don't know what happened, but the very last couple of minutes are cut off of this recording that I made, but for some reason the very last little bit that you need to hear was cut off, so I'm going to try to do that for you now so that I can get this saved. And we were talking about the other side of your new warehouse and the other side of your duplex. You have a possible worker, employee there. The lady, if she stays home, might want to work a little bit. Maybe they've got a teenager who wants a part-time job. He or she might want to work a little bit. If they're home educated, even better, but you never know. So see what happens. Hopefully you like your tenants. If you don't like them, don't rent to them in the first place. So they might be a great little part-time help for you if you want it. So someday, what happens to that side of the duplex if you decide, no, I've had enough of eBay treating me like a king and queen every day reselling. It gets a little old after a while being, treated so nicely by a reselling platform. You just want to close your reselling business. Fine. That one side, the kitchen's done, all the plumbing works, at least one bathroom's all fixed up. If there's only one or more than one, you can do the other one. But you fix up the other side and you rent it out. What happens at that point? Your rent has now doubled. Your income for that property has now doubled. And it's already gone up since you first rented it, because rents always go up over time in general. In general, in most places, rents go over time. That's a bet you would always make. Will you ever lose on that? Possibly, but you won't. It just won't happen. People are nice enough at that point. Maybe you want to get out of the rental property business after 10 years. Sell them. Guess what? It's worth far more than you paid, only you didn't pay for anything. Your tenants paid for it. Well, what about my down payment? Okay, well, you're out that very early initial down payment. Okay, you're out $5,000. Okay, so what? That's nothing. That's a drop in the bucket after all that you've made. And the house is worth so much more than people spent buying it for you. And even if you've got some of your small debt left because prices are so much more now than the day you bought it, whenever you sell it, it's going to pay off the rest of that mortgage, which is now small, a decade later, and give you all of that equity in that house that's just handed to you. And what do you do with that? I don't know. You've got a tax problem. It's a good tax problem, but you got a tax problem. Maybe you want to put your houses in a trust the moment you buy them. Maybe you want to LLC your homes. And I don't know. Talk to an accountant when you buy your first house to see what would be best. Sure, right now, all the reasons are against doing this or anything else. We've entered a created recession. Housing will see a slowdown. It already has seen a slowdown, possibly a price drop. Great, right? I'm speaking to many of you who don't yet have rentals. It will be an even better time to buy them in the coming months in a recession if prices continue to drop. We're having a funny recession. It's technically a recession in every sense of the word, no matter what they say, but employment is really low. Unemployment's really low because we don't have enough people. We've killed them all off. We've killed them all off at birth, before birth, and we've killed them all off, afterwards with healthcare situations. And so we don't have enough people to fulfill all of our jobs. So it's a guaranteed recession, but we have also a housing crunch right now. There aren't enough houses for the few people that are left because housing prices, housing materials went up so much over the last few years, especially the last two when lumber skyrocketed, that they just stopped building houses. And we still have people coming into our country, right? Good and bad. We still have people coming in and they need places to live. And housing is not feeling that depressed price that we almost always have in a recession. It still might get pretty bad. But right now, housing supply is at a premium. It's at a minimum. There aren't that many houses right now. So house prices might not drop a lot. But you're always going to find those deals that I told you about. You're always going to find the houses that no one else wants. Those are the sweet deals. Recessions have never lasted. Never. Even the Great Depression didn't last, right? You'll have your houses longer than 2 to 3 years. House prices always go up over time. Multiple mortgages, do they frighten you? Maybe, but multiple checks coming in that are far more than those mortgage payments, that really helps ease your fear. Trust me, it really helps ease your fear, and you'll realize, yeah, this is the way to do this. What happens if the whole economy goes bankrupt? Shouldn't you have tried to pay cash for a house and bought it, struggled and saved for 2 years and bought a house for cash, and you own it, and now if something ever happens to the economy, we own this house? No, you don't want to do that. That's not wise. Okay, I'm not talking about the house you live in, although I'm not all that sure that's all that wise either, but moving away from that, to even own the house you live in. I think you ought to lease a house that you live in, that your company owns actually, but that's just me. Let's say in 7 years, our whole economy just tanks, okay? We become third world nation. Some people think it's not going to take that long. We'll see. But what if that happens? You've got 7 years of cash flow income of profits that you've been banking month after month after month because you don't own that house. You didn't scrimp and save for 2 or 3 years trying to buy a house for cash and all of that. You're getting all of the tax advantage. You're getting long-term mortgage as long as that bank will give you so that your cash flow is as high as possible. In 7 years, if it all crashes, so what if you own that second home that's a rent house? No one can afford to rent from you. You're not going to sell it to anybody. It's just going to sit there and crumble, right? Either way, it's going to sit there and crumble if the worst happens. So what happens to you? Well, if you've been cash flowing all this time, you've got all this dough. If you own the house, you've got a worthless house. You haven't been cash flowing all this time. You've been kind of paying yourself back all that money that you're out. You might be out $21,000 because you bought a nice little 2-bedroom house with a fenced backyard and a garage that was ugly at the time. And in today's world, $21,000 of that house is nothing, but you paid cash for that. And for the first 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, you were paying yourself back. You don't have any money yet. You're out all that money that you don't have back yet. What if you got a long-term mortgage? You were paying nothing to service that debt. I mean, your tenants were servicing your debt for you, and you pocketed the rest. So you either have a buildup of cash if the whole economy goes, or you have an empty house if the whole economy goes. You don't have a bunch of money if you do it the Dave Ramsey way. That's not the way to do this business. I think Dave would agree to a point, but maybe he would agree a lot. He understands capital investments. He does. I shouldn't be so negative about Dave. I love the guy. If multiple mortgages frighten you, just look at it as multiple checks. You need to know, right now as a reseller, you need space. And come on, my duplex idea is truly amazing, right? I mean, you move your business out of your family's home and somebody's paying for your warehouse space. The other side is paying for your warehouse space, or most of it. I know, hopefully you all grow to a point where you need far more room than one side of a large duplex can give you, right? Hopefully you outgrow that one side of a duplex. At that point, you might want to look into a relatively small but large for you commercial real estate space for sale property, perhaps. I mean, you're in the rental property business at that point. Buy a little strip warehouse center. They're available all over the place. You just have to look. You have to find the right real estate agent that services those. They're all over. They're just usually we are dealing with home real estate agents, not industrial real estate agents. Find you a nice small little warehouse space that you can rent out 2 or 3 other sides, spaces, and you keep one that's now large enough for your business that you've grown into when that one side of the duplex was too small, and just rinse and repeat on now you're in the commercial real estate business. I think you're going to have to pay more I think you're going to get a smaller mortgage on that. You probably have to pay 20, 25%, 30% down payment if you buy something like that. I don't know. I don't do it. I've never done this. But I suspect it's more. I suspect you'll have more expenses with a commercial, but you're going to have more income. And you're not going to have the problems that you will have with families moving in and out and repainting and all of that. It's an empty warehouse space. It's totally different. There are advantages and disadvantages to both. And maybe that's what you move into next after your duplex finally is not enough room. I hope that I've given you a little food for thought here. I hope that I've taught you the importance of making money work for you for a change, instead of just thinking in really pauper mentality of we need to own this in order to invest in this. We need to be fully invested we need to put all of our money into this house. No, you don't. That's not what your money's going to really do well for you. You want to maximize the number of doors that you rent out over time eventually. And you start with one duplex, you start with one fourplex. If you don't need the size, use one of your fourplexes and let your other 3 tenants just pay for the thing and cash flow you all day. Download the book. Remember, it's outdated because it's been 7 years since I've done anything to it. That's okay. You're going to 80, 90, really 90, 95% of it still applies. getting tenants. What do you do as a landlord? How do you find tenants? What do you do as a landlady? It's all good information that will whet your appetite on how you can finally make your money work for you.